First Blood. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the EFS Defiant, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the holographic display of what remained of New Haven Colony. The mining outpost's emergency beacon still pulsed weakly, a desperate cry echoing across the void of space. 30,000 civilians dead, not from conventional weapons, but from drachnid bioweapons that had literally dissolved their victims from the inside out. Status report, she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 20 years of military service. Confirmation of drachnid energy signatures. Admiral Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the haptic interface. They didn't even try to hide their tracks. The residual radiation matches their warship engines perfectly. Chen's jaw tightened. The Drachnid Empire had ruled the Orion Arm for 10 millennia, their technological superiority unchallenged. Humanity's emergence into the galactic community just 50 years ago had been met with dismissive amusement by the ancient species. Humans were quaint, they said, primitive but entertaining. Now those primitives were about to teach them the meaning of fear. Send the signal, Chen ordered. Activate Protocol Prometheus. Throughout human space, dormant systems whirred to life. Quantum computers that had been disguised as primitive navigation aids revealed their true nature. Weapon systems that the drachnids had dismissed as crude projectile launchers reconfigured themselves into something far more lethal. For 50 years, humanity had played the part of the technological inferior. They had weathered the condescension, the restrictions, the protective oversight of the Drachnid Empire, all while preparing, all while watching, all while learning. The Drachnids had made a fundamental mistake in their assessment of humanity. They had looked at human technology and seen its limitations. They should have looked at human history and seen its potential. Multiple Drachnid warships detected at the edge of the system, Rodriguez announced. 12 dreadnoughts, Admiral. They're moving into attack formation Delta 7. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Delta 7, the Drachnid's favorite overwhelming force configuration. She had studied it extensively, along with every other standard Drachnid tactical pattern. The aliens were creatures of habit, relying on the same strategies that had served them for thousands of years. Launch the ghosts, she commanded. From the Defiant's launch bays, dozens of small, sleek craft emerged. To Drachnid sensors, they would appear as debris, their quantum-entangled hulls making them nearly impossible to track. Another primitive human technology that the Drachnids had dismissed, until now. Message from the Drachnid flagship, Rodriguez reported. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Chen activated the comm system. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Fleet Ship Defiant. You have committed an act of war against humanity through the use of banned bioweapons on a civilian population. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. What happens next is on your heads. She cut the transmission before they could respond. The Drachnids would be processing her words, trying to understand how a primitive species dared to defy them. Their confusion would cost them precious seconds. Ghost squadrons in position, Rodriguez reported. Quantum fields synchronized. Chen nodded. Execute. The debris surrounding the Drachnid fleet suddenly came alive. The ghost ships, each piloted by a human consciousness linked directly to their craft's quantum systems, began their dance. They moved in ways that violated every principle of space combat the Drachnids had evolved over millennia. The first Drachnid dreadnought died before its crew even realized they were under attack. The ghosts had identified a microscopic flaw in their shield harmonics, a flaw that only existed for a fraction of a second during each power cycle. But a fraction of a second was an eternity to a quantum computer. Target their flagship, Chen ordered. Let's show them exactly what these primitives can do. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Drachnid fleet, armed with technology that should have made them invincible, found themselves being systematically dismantled by an enemy they couldn't even properly detect. When it was over, 11 Drachnid dreadnoughts had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The flagship alone remained, its weapons and engines disabled, its once proud crew now trapped in a tomb of their own making. Chen opened a channel to the surviving vessel. "This was a demonstration," she stated flatly. "A preview of what's coming. You thought humans were primitive because we didn't match your technological advancement. You never asked yourselves why we chose to appear that way." She paused, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity is done playing nice. And tell them that New Haven Colony was just the beginning of their mistakes." The Drachnid flagship limped away, its damaged engines leaving a trail of plasma that looked almost like tears against the black of space. Chen watched it go, knowing that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn a harsh lesson about humanity. They weren't primitive. They weren't weak. They were patient, and now that patience had run out. "Set course for the Arcturus system," Chen commanded. "It's time to show the Drachnids what humanity can really do." As the Defiant's quantum drive spooled up, Chen thought about the civilians of New Haven. Their deaths would be avenged, not just with violence, but with such a complete dismantling of Drachnid power that the Empire would never threaten another species again. The universe was about to change, and humanity would be the ones holding the hammer. The art of war. The Drachnid High Command's central chamber buzzed with panic. Supreme Commander Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with agitation as he reviewed the footage from their devastating defeat at New Haven. Around him, his finest strategists chittered and hummed in disbelief. "Impossible," General Khazar insisted, his armored carapace clicking nervously. "Their ships moved through spaces too small for their mass. They bypassed shielding frequencies that have protected our fleets for millennia. These humans must have acquired advanced technology from another species." "No," Vexthor responded, his voice resonating through the chamber. "They developed it themselves, while we watched them build crude fusion drives and basic shield generators. They were studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing." The holographic display showed the human ghost chips dancing through their defense grid like quantum phantoms, each movement precise, calculated, lethal. The Drachnid Empire had grown complacent in their technological superiority, never imagining that a younger species might approach warfare from an entirely different angle. On the other side of the galaxy, the EFS Defiant emerged from quantum space near the Arcturus system. Admiral Chen's tactical display highlighted 3 Drachnid military installations, supposedly secret bases that the Empire used to project power across the sector. "Begin broadcast on all frequencies," Chen ordered. "Let's see how they handle the truth." Across every Drachnid communication channel, in perfect Imperial standard, detailed evidence of the Empire's violations of galactic law began streaming. Not just the attack on New Haven, but centuries of suppression, exploitation, and illegal weapons development. Humanity had been watching, recording, gathering proof. "Multiple Drachnid signatures detected," Rodriguez reported. "They're scrambling everything they have." Chen nodded. "Deploy the entropy swarm." From the Defiant's hold, thousands of small drones emerged, each one barely larger than a human hand, powered by miniaturized quantum cores. The Drachnids had dismissed human drone technology as primitive, never realizing that size had nothing to do with sophistication. The swarm spread out, forming complex geometric patterns that shifted and flowed like living mathematics. As Drachnid warships approached, their crews confident in their superior shields and weapons, the swarm went to work. Each drone carried a fraction of a much larger quantum algorithm. Together, they created a cascading field of probabilistic manipulation. Drachnid shields, designed to stop energy and matter, were useless against weapons that altered the fundamental laws of physics within their bubble of influence. Ships began to fail as their perfectly engineered systems encountered impossible variables. Weapons misfired. Engines stalled. The proud Drachnid fleet found itself being systematically dismantled by an enemy they couldn't even properly target. Back in the High Command chamber, Vexthor watched the real-time footage with growing horror. How? He demanded. How did we not see this coming? A junior analyst, braver than most, spoke up. Sir, I've been studying human historical records. Their entire species evolved through constant adaptation and warfare. They don't think like us, where we perfect a technology and standardize its use. They never stop looking for new applications, new combinations, new ways to subvert expectations. Vexthor's crystalline form darkened with realization. The Empire had spent millennia becoming the perfect warrior culture, but in doing so, they had become predictable. Humans, with their chaotic history and constant drive to innovate, had turned that predictability into a weapon. On the Defiance Bridge, Chen watched as the last Drachnid installation went dark. The entropy swarm had disabled their technology so completely that even basic life support systems had to be manually operated. No casualties, just thousands of very scared, very humbled Drachnid warriors. Broadcast on all frequencies, Chen commanded. To all Drachnid forces in this sector, your installations have been neutralized. Your ships are disabled. This could have been a slaughter, but humanity chooses to be better than that. We don't want your empire. We don't want your technology. We want justice, and we want change. She paused, letting her words sink in. You have 12 hours to evacuate all military personnel from this sector. After that, these bases will be destroyed. Consider this a demonstration of both our capability and our restraint. The next phase of this operation depends entirely on your empire's next move. As the Drachnid crews scrambled to their escape pods, Chen turned to her tactical officer. Send word to Fleet Command. Phase 2 is complete. The Empire's military command structure is about to experience something they've never faced before. What's that, Admiral? Rodriguez asked. Chen's smile was grim. Doubt. Breaking point. The Grand Hall of the Drachnid Imperial Palace had never felt so small. Emperor Zexthar, resplendent in his ceremonial crystal armor, faced the assembled Emergency Council. 10,000 years of unquestioned dominion over the galaxy's Orion arm hung by a thread, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The humans have disabled 17 more military installations across 3 sectors. High Admiral Koval reported, his usual confident posture notably diminished. No casualties, but they're systematically stripping away our ability to project power. Worse, they're broadcasting proof of our treaty violations to every species in the galaxy. The Emperor's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained rage. How are they doing this? Where did they hide such technology? They didn't hide it. A new voice spoke. Dr. Liana Martinez, Earth's ambassador to the Empire, stood at the chamber's entrance. The human woman's presence, unannounced and uninvited, sent ripples of shock through the assembly. This is an outrage. Supreme Commander Vexthor protested. How dare you intrude upon? You lost the right to diplomatic niceties when you murdered 30,000 civilians. Martine has cut him off, her voice arctic. But I'm not here to trade accusations. I'm here to offer you a choice. She walked to the center of the chamber, her steps echoing in the stunned silence. A small holographic projector activated in her hand, showing the full extent of human space. Everything you've seen. The quantum ghost ships, the entropy swarms, the probability weapons. That's not hidden technology. That's what we chose to show you. The Emperor's crystalline structure dimmed slightly. What do you mean? Humanity has a long history of warfare, Martins explained, her tone clinical. We learned early that showing your full capabilities often leads to escalation. So when we met your empire, we showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. We built technology that looked primitive because we knew your cultural arrogance would prevent you from looking deeper. The hologram shifted, showing the battle at New Haven from multiple angles. You saw fusion drives, we were using quantum displacement. You saw radio communications, we were using entangled networks. You saw metal hulls, we were using programmable matter. We didn't hide our technology. We just presented it in a way that matched your expectations of a primitive species. Impossible, Cavol whispered, but there was doubt in his voice. Martinez smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Your empire has ruled through technological superiority for so long that you forgot the most important lesson of power. It's not the strength of your weapons that matters, but how you choose to use them. She gestured, and the hologram showed the disabled Drachnid installations. We could have destroyed your ships, killed your crews, dismantled your empire piece by piece. Instead, we chose to demonstrate both our capability and our restraint. What do you want? Emperor Zexthar demanded, his voice carrying a tremor never before heard from a Drachnid ruler. Justice, Martine stated flatly. Reformation. Change. The galaxy doesn't need an empire built on suppression and fear. It needs a community of equals. You have 12 hours to begin the process of transitioning the empire into a constitutional federation, with guaranteed rights for all species. After that, she let the threat hang unspoken. Everyone in the chamber had seen what humanity could do. Everyone knew this was just the surface of their capabilities. Meanwhile, aboard the EFS Defiant, Admiral Chen received the quantum transmission from Earth Command. The message was brief but significant. Phase 3 authorized. Contingency Oracle is active. Status of the Oracle platforms. Chen asked her tactical officer. All 100,000 satellites are in position. Admiral Rodriguez reported. Quantum network is stable. If the Drachnids refuse the ambassador's terms. Chen nodded. The Oracle network was humanity's ultimate insurance policy, a vast web of quantum computers capable of predicting and countering any military action before it began. They had spent 50 years positioning the satellites, disguising them as space debris, waiting for a moment they hoped would never come. New transmission from the Imperial Palace, Rodriguez announced. Ambassador Martinez reports. They're accepting our terms. The Emperor is abdicating in favor of a transitional council. Chen allowed herself to relax slightly. Stand down Oracle network, but maintain surveillance. The next few months will determine whether the Drachnids truly understand the lesson we've taught them. Which lesson is that, Admiral? She turned to look out at the stars, thinking of the colonies like New Haven that would never have to fear arbitrary destruction again. That true strength isn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about knowing when not to use them. Shattered crystal. The news of Emperor Zexthar's abdication spread across the Drachnid Empire at quantum speed. On 1,000 worlds, crystalline beings who had known nothing but absolute imperial rule for generations tried to process the unthinkable. For some, it was too much to bear. Admiral Chen received the alert just as she was reviewing plans for the transitional government. Multiple unauthorized launches detected from the Drachnid core worlds, Rodriguez reported, his voice tense. Warships. Hundreds of them. They're not responding to the new council's orders to stand down. The Imperial Guard, the Emperor's most fanatical supporters, had decided to make their move. Led by Grand Marshal Kexavan, they had seized control of the Empire's remaining military assets. Their quantum-encrypted transmission played across all frequencies. Death before dishonor. The Empire will not bow to primitive apes. In her office at the Imperial Palace, Ambassador Martinez received the news with grim resignation. They're forcing our hand, she said to the holographic projection of Admiral Chen. How many civilians are in their path? Too many, Chen replied. They're targeting populated systems, trying to force us to either let them restore the old order or become the monsters they claim we are. Martinez nodded. Activate Protocol Prometheus Omega. Show them what happens when humanity truly takes the gloves off. Across human space, hidden quantum factories that had laid dormant for decades hummed to life. The Oracle network, still maintaining its passive surveillance mode, switched to full combat operations. What happened next would be spoken of in whispers for centuries to come. Grand Marshal Kexavan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Throne, watching with satisfaction as his fleet approached their first target. a mixed-species colony world that had openly supported the reforms. "Let them see the price of defying the natural order," he declared. That's when reality itself seemed to hiccup. The Oracle Network hadn't just predicted the Imperial Guard's actions, it had mapped out every possible variation of their strategy. Before Kexavon's ships could fire their first shot, they found themselves trapped in a quantum bubble where cause and effect had become negotiable. "What sorcery is this?" Kexavon demanded as his weapons refused to fire. His engines burned at full power without moving, and his sensors showed him dying in 1,000 different ways simultaneously. Admiral Chen's voice came through on all frequencies. "This is what we were holding back. You thought you saw our full capabilities. You saw what we wanted you to see. This is humanity when we stop playing nice." The Imperial Guard fleet hung helpless in space as human ships emerged from quantum space around them. Not the small ghost ships or drone swarms they had seen before, but massive vessels that seemed to bend light around them, their hulls shifting like liquid metal. "Last chance," Chen announced. "Power down your weapons and submit to the new Council's authority, or we show you exactly how primitive we're not." In response, Kexavon ordered his flagship to self-destruct, attempting to take at least some humans with him. The Crystal Throne's quantum core began its catastrophic overload sequence, only to find its very atoms refuse to cooperate. The laws of physics themselves seemed to have turned against the Imperial Guard. "Impossible," Kexavon whispered. "What are you?" "We are what you made us," Chen replied. "Every time you dismissed us as primitive, we learned. Every time you flaunted your technological superiority, we adapted. Every time you threatened us, we prepared. We are humanity, and we are done being underestimated." The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in minutes. The Imperial Guard fleet found themselves systematically disabled by weapons they couldn't understand, much less resist. Their mighty warships, pride of the Empire, were reduced to floating hulks by humans who had rewritten the rules of space combat. In the aftermath, as the new Council's forces secured the surrendered vessels, Admiral Chen met with Ambassador Martinez in person for the first time since the crisis began. "Was it worth it?" Martinez asked, looking out at the stars from the observation deck of the Defiant, revealing so much of our true capabilities. Chen considered the question carefully. They needed to understand, not just the Imperial Guard, but everyone in the galaxy. Humanity isn't here to conquer or dominate. We're here to ensure that what happened to New Haven never happens again to anyone. Dawn's promise. 1 year after the fall of the Drachnid Empire, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The great crystalline spires of the Imperial Palace now housed the Galactic Federation Council, where representatives from 100 species, including the reformed Drachnids, worked together to forge a different future. Admiral Sarah Chen, newly appointed as Earth's chief representative to the Federation, stood before the council chamber. The faces looking back at her were no longer filled with fear or resentment, but with cautious respect and, in many cases, genuine admiration. "The transition hasn't been easy," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Change never is. But look at what we've accomplished in just 1 year. Trade routes once restricted by imperial decree now flow freely. Technologies once hoarded by the Empire are being shared and improved upon by all member species. And most importantly, the peace we've achieved isn't maintained by fear, but by mutual understanding." In orbit above, the Defiant held station alongside ships from 24 species. The mighty vessel, once the symbol of humanity's hidden power, now served as a training platform where different species learned from each other. Former Imperial Guard officers worked alongside the very humans they had once dismissed as primitives, each gaining new perspectives. Ambassador Martinez, watching from her office in the New Haven Memorial Building, smiled as she reviewed the latest reports. The Oracle Network, its true nature now known to all, had been repurposed. Instead of preparing for war, it helped coordinate disaster relief, predict resource shortages, and prevent conflicts before they could begin. Incoming transmission from the Drachnid reformist movement, her aide announced. They're requesting human assistance with their quantum engineering program. Martinez nodded, remembering how unthinkable such a request would have been just a year ago. The Drachnids, freed from millennia of imperial dogma, were rediscovering their capacity for innovation and change. Some had even begun experimenting with non-crystalline forms, exploring new ways of being. Back in the council chamber, Chen concluded her address. Many have asked why humanity hid its true capabilities for so long, why we allowed ourselves to be seen as primitives when we could have dominated from the start. The answer is simple. Power isn't about what you can do to others. It's about what you choose not to do. She gestured to the great window behind her, where the stars shone bright and clear. We could have conquered. We could have destroyed. We could have become everything we fought against. Instead, we chose a harder path. We chose to wait, to watch, to understand. And when we finally had to act, we chose to use our strength not for dominion, but for change. In the rebuilt colony of New Haven, a memorial garden bloomed where the bioweapons had once scared the earth. Crystalline flowers, a gift from the reformed Drachnid society, grew alongside earth plants, their colors mixing in ways that would have been forbidden under the old empire. Children from a dozen species played in the gardens, their laughter a testament to how much had changed. The Defiant's quantum sensors detected an unusual signal from deep space, something new, something unknown. Once, such a discovery would have been met with fear and preparation for war. Now the ship's crew, human, Drachnid, and others, prepared to investigate with curiosity and hope. New contact, Rodriguez reported from his station, now serving as the Defiant's first officer, way beyond known space. Should we alert the defense grid? Chen smiled, remembering a time when every unknown was treated as a threat. No. Send out a welcome message on all frequencies. Let's show them what this galaxy has become. As the message beamed out into the unknown, Chen reflected on the long journey that had brought them here. Humanity had proven itself not through conquest or dominion, but through the wisdom to know when to hold back, and when to act, when to fight, and when to forgive. The galaxy had learned to fear humans when they lost their temper. But more importantly, it had learned to respect them for what they did with victory. As the unknown signal grew stronger, Chen knew that whatever came next, the lesson would not be forgotten. Prepare first contact protocols, she ordered. Let's welcome them to a galaxy that's finally learned to look beyond fear and power to something greater, the courage to change.